so our friends south of the border had a big Gen Z protest, or so we are being told. Here's NBC's coverage of that.
Tonight, there are growing questions into a surge of youth-led protests taking place across major cities in Mexico. The demonstrations reaching a fever pitch over the weekend as some hooded protesters tore down fences around the National Palace, home to President Claudia Sheinbaum. Images from the clashes show riot police using tear gas and smoke bombs, trying to calm the crowds, seen here kicking the fence and throwing rocks at officers. Mexico City's public safety secretary saying the protests left at least 120 injured, 100 of them officers, some who were taken to the hospital. The rallies organized by Generation Z Mexico, referring to the demographic group of people born between 1997 and 2012. The 16-year-old injured during the protest telling Telemundo, "The people are dying, the people are disappearing. For it to get to the point where minors are here protesting, it's because the country is horrible." Protesters using a popular symbol, the pirate flag from the anime One Piece, seen in Gen Z protests around the globe, including ones in Nepal and Madagascar, which ended in the ousting of heads of state.
Including the organic protests in Nepal.
Yes. Now look at the people. Does this look like Gen Z to you? Keep looking in the background of these shots because they're very selectively showing certain people. We'll get into it.
This protester saying the Gen Z groups organized themselves on Discord. While President Sheinbaum saying this week the protests didn't arise organically with the youth, but were part of a $90 million campaign by her opponents. But back on the streets, this young man saying the movement isn't affiliated with any party, just an ideology for a better Mexico. The unrest fueled by recent violence, including the death of Carlos Manzo, a mayor who was assassinated in public during a Day of the Dead celebration earlier this month, known for declaring war on the cartels and his criticism of the federal government for lack of action. Protesters wearing cowboy hats in his honor. This protester saying she is seeking justice.
Look at the crowd. Look at the crowd. Does this look like a Gen Z crowd to you?
No, it looks like No Kings.
It looks like the No Kings rally.
Exactly. This for his death and all those who have lost their lives and their property at the hands of criminals.
And with that, George Solis.
Okay. Now, this segment is really instructive on why when you go to Thanksgiving, your aunt is living in a parallel universe that has no relationship to reality. Look at the headlines, man. Mexican mayor's assassination sparks mass protests in Mexico City. CNN, Mexico City erupts in first major Gen Z protest. Why? AP, thousands protest crime and corruption in Mexico City as Gen Z protests gain momentum. Okay, so you're going to come away from this if you're not really going to get into researching it, as 99% of people will not, particularly your aunt that you're going to see at Thanksgiving and try to avoid, who's going to lecture you about how Kamala would have been the greatest president ever. Yeah, you're going to think that these were enormous protests and that it was really driven by the younger generation, right? That's what you're going to come away with. All right, so this is actual time-lapsed video of these massive protests. Massive.
Like Rescue the Republic.
Yeah.
Have Jordan Peterson come out with Russell Brand.
Yeah.
Have a prayer.
About as big as it got. They were never able to actually fill this plaza with people. All right, mimosas, everybody, mimosas. So that's the actual.
We have tickets to Chicago.
Yeah. So here, Crónicas del Levante shared the exact same place 2 months ago, filled to the brim with people chanting "Free Palestine," and you can see that whole square is just packed shoulder to shoulder. Hegelian dystopia. Nice screen name. Yeah, it was only around 25,000 across all of Mexico, which is compared to a population of 132 million. Nothing but a joke, even for a color revolution. Scheinbaum also has strong support in rural areas. Madeline Pendleton, Gen Z revolution, and it's a couple of hundred right-wing baby boomers and a few literal Nazis. So somebody actually went out to interview in a far less selective way that NBC did, a more representative sample of the people at this protest. And lest you think they're cherry picking, we showed you on the NBC video. Look at the people in the background. This is much more typical of what was there than who they chose to feature.
Donald Trump, presidente.
Demonstrators in Mexico City hate Scheinbaum, but they love Trump. I'm sure that's a very typical opinion in Mexico. And would you prefer Donald Trump to be the president of Mexico to Claudia? Let me turn this down.
They're looking forward to getting their landscapers back.
Yeah. Like that 1,000 times, yes. And what do you think about Donald Trump? That he's doing a good job. And what do you think about the militarization of the United States? Well, the same. If it were here, the country wouldn't be okay either. Well, he is just good things in
other things that we are not.
What would you say some of the good things are?
Well, he protects the life. I mean, the newborn, okay?
Abortion.
Abortion. He's against abortion, okay?
De Donald Trump.
I think he's a good president. Maybe he's not the best there is. However, if it were Kamala, I think the situation would be worse because Kamala, along with Biden, are very similar to Lopez Obrador, and that's why many things were allowed in the United States. The arrival of many immigrants, many drug traffickers. They're there, and it was all due to Biden's complicity with Lopez Obrador under the Morena government. That's why they were overrun by drug traffickers and criminals. There is a nice young man. We call him here Benny in the closet. And I get most of my information there. He's very good. Very good. Very nice.
What is that, like
very
the Staten Island
very,
of Mexico
very
City?
heterosexual young man.
Yeah.
These are the people who are being drawn out, along with, this is from Anonymous. Here is one of the Gen Z protesters in Mexico, former president and ex-Coca-Cola executive Vicente Fox. He has been reported to have helped ignite the cartel wars and to have conspired with the Sinaloa cartel using state power during his administration to target its rivals. A lot of people had fun with this. How do you do, fellow kids? Mexico edition. Yeah, that's it's very Gen Z there with the one-shot T-shirt and everything. Danny Haifong. Here's how to tell a protest is a color revolution before even investigating its funding sources. The protest has zero demands, kind of like the Women's March or the No Kings March, right? The March About Nothing had no demands either. I asked a bunch of people at the march what the demands were. Nobody had an answer. Becomes violent not out of self-defense, praises Western democracy, and has zero relationship to the impoverished majority. Mexico's Gen Z protest checks all these boxes, and just so happens it is funded by U.S.-backed billionaires, business tycoons, and former politicians wanting to turn Mexico's government once again into a subservient vassal of Washington. Samuel, who is behind the failed Gen Z anime color revolution in Mexico? Vast network of NGOs in the service of U.S. imperialism, previously linked to USAID and NED. What did we tell you? What did we tell you when people were getting very, very excited about these exposés on USAID and their woke programs? What do you think this crew's going to do? Going to continue to actually give the aid part and get rid of these color revolution CIA coup operations, or keep those operations going and get rid of the food aid? And of course, that's exactly what they did. There have been horrible reports that, frankly, I think people in this space don't really want to cover because a lot of people were crowing so much about the dismantling of USAID with no nuance to that reporting. Nobody wants to cover it. But yeah, they stopped food aid. They stopped HIV medication. What do you think is happening now? Those people are dying. Even if you feel like, you know what, I just want the whole thing rolled up, they were never going to do that. And this is a perfect example of the fact that they were never going to get rid of the part that you took exception to. Mexican billionaire Ricardo Salinas, who was recently forced to pay billions in taxes and now holds a grudge against the government. He also owns a large media empire. Mexico's right-wing opposition, from former presidents to party leaders. And we saw Vicente Fox out there in a ridiculous one-shot t-shirt. The regional and international right wing, Argentinians, Spaniards, Miami, etc. Angelo Giuliano. Color Revolution attempt in Mexico. Here are the largest Twitter accounts that amplified the most calls for protests in Mexico. Amongst them, Mario Naufal, Elon Musk's protege. I'm sure if you've been on X, you've seen that account. Mexico's ex-president Vicente Fox, Ricardo Salinas, a Mexican billionaire, one of the richest men in Mexico. Now, Anonymous did a pretty good breakdown of what happened here. Me and Keith were talking about this a little before the show. It's not that there was no organic protest against corruption, which is a long-standing problem in Mexico. I don't think any reasonable person would lay that at the feet of Scheinbaum. But these other interests hijacked this and promoted their own right-wing slant on it. An analysis of accounts pushing and amplifying regime change in Mexico and hijacking anti-impunity, anti-cartel protests. International right-wing MAGA-tied propagandas, primarily from the U.S., the Salinas Pliego network, and 50% foreign botted accounts. And here you can see the map. Where's the biggest circle? Right here, baby. United States. That's where most of the bots are coming from. Blue-checked right-wing accounts tied to MAGA and Trump suddenly took an interest in Mexico overnight, as well as Mexican influencers likely tied to Trump's CIA in the attempt to overthrow the government. A right-wing Mexican senator also linked to the influence op did the rounds on Fox News. Overall, the initial peaceful protest that was hijacked by right-wing agitators and trolls gathered around 4,000 people, give or take, from various demographics. They are being organized locally and call for an end to impunity, but foreign elements are trying to manipulate them towards their own goals. A large number of accounts or influencers seen calling for the overthrow of the Mexican government over alleged cartel links are associated to previous governments and associations linked to the cartels themselves and are now boosted by Trump's influence networks, including Argentina and El Salvador. Case in point, the populist revolution globally is unstoppable. The National Palace of Mexico is under siege by its citizens amid discontentment with Claudia Sheinbaum, the WEF puppet. Our friend Alex Jones there joining in, of course. Yeah, you're not a WEF puppet. It's Claudia Sheinbaum that they're trying to do a color revolution on right now. And the comments were pretty negative on that post. Jackson Hinkle, CIA coup attempt will 100% fail. Leslie Sokal, total lie. Kevin Castley, you do realize these people are paid by the CIA to do a color revolution, right? What happened to being against the globalists, Alex?
Shut up.
Shut up. I'm not a globalist. I was fighting globalists while you were still a jizz in your dad's balls. Gatto Fumador. The real Alex Jones didn't support CIA color revolutions. 100% an evil clone. You know, some people think he's Sam Kinison. And of course, Benny in the closet jumped on that. Gen Z riots erupt in Mexico. And that's a perfect example of what we've been saying. that headline is very much what you saw in the AP, right? The corporate media captures the old people, and then they bought out the Alex Joneses and the Benny Johnsons for people, younger people usually, who get their news from independent sources or, so-called independent sources, and want to think that they're getting an authentic opinion from a real person. It's the same exact narrative you're getting from corporate media. It's just another trap for younger mice. That's all. Seth Harp here is an investigative reporter. In reality, he's responding to Jones here. In reality, Scheinbaum's administration is probably the most popular government in the world. There is still a lot of corruption in Mexico, but the president is not personally corrupt, and things are steadily improving. That's more than we can say in the USA. Right? Say that again, brother. So to his point, uh, this is a couple of different polls. This is from NCOL. In general, do you approve or disapprove of the work Claudia Sheinbaum is doing as president of the Republic? Starts at 76% December last year. By October, it's at 78%. That's not outside of the this isn't cherry picked. Like generally her polling lands between about 70 and 79 in various polls. When was the last time we had a president with that kind of a approval rating? I
Our
honestly
presidents
believe
can't crack 50 for more than 2 weeks after they're inaugurated.
the last time I remember a president having that kind of approval rating was Bush the first when we started the Gulf War. And there was a lot going on there, man. That was after years and years and years of Sylvester Stallone and Chuck Norris refighting the Vietnam War. There was a lot of that. Oh, we're going to get the lost pride that we lost in the jungles of Vietnam. There was a lot of shit mixed up in that. But Bush was over 90%. I don't remember that ever happening after that, not even close. Approval by age, 18 to 24, 71. Doesn't seem like Gen Z hates Scheinbaum. Doesn't seem 71% approve. 25 to 34, 74%. 35 to 44, 77%. Now, my theory of why she gets even more popular with older people, which shows what a selective sample that was in the plaza, is those people are probably more dependent on benefits. And she's greatly improved the benefit regime by all accounts. And so on, topping out 65 plus 87, what is that, 82%? 82%?
Yeah, 82, yeah.
And 55 to 64, she has 85%. That's her top demographic, 55 to 64 in that poll. El Financiero, in general, do you approve or disapprove of the job she's doing? She started at 70% October 2024, and right back where she started this October, 70%. Seems to have peaked at 85% in February. Okay. So extremely popular, normal ups and downs, but overall very, very popular. Here's Nick Cruz. Very interesting how whenever a world leader rejects neoliberalism and reduces poverty, they are hit with a Gen Z uprising. Yes, and he includes an article. Mexico records a historic drop in poverty. Yep. SL Canthan. Okay, it looks like the U.S. has enough motives for a color revolution in Mexico. Reason. Under former President AMLO and his successor Scheinbaum, Mexico has become a bit too progressive or socialist. Minimum wage was tripled in 6 years under AMLO from $5 a day to $15 a day. Now Scheinbaum wants to double it again in her term. Understand, that's not per hour, that's per day. She wants to build 1 million homes and offers 0% interest mortgages for low-income people. Scheinbaum deprivatized oil, electricity, and railway companies. Well, that'll get you whacked every time. Not a full nationalization, but government has majority shares. She has gone after the fifth richest man in Mexico for back taxes. This was made possible with changes to judiciary, which is controversial. Her party is trying to reduce the work week from 48 hours to 40 hours. trying to provide Social Security benefits for gig workers like Uber. She raised taxes on Coca-Cola. See, Vicente Fox didn't like that. That's why he's out there.
That's
and
right.
forced it to reduce sugar by 30%. Look, she's Maha. She's better Maha than RFK is.
Yeah.
Look at her. There are other new sin taxes. Big spending on public schools infrastructure and scholarship to help the poor. Trickle up economics. The administration operates on a principle of for the good of all, the poor come first. These are all anathema for neoliberal capitalists in Mexico and the US. During the Cold War, the US overthrew many Latin American leaders for such progressive policies. Yes, they did. And as if that wasn't enough, of course, they're bringing their best. The Nazis. Nazi rioters in Mexico City vandalized Scheinbaum's office with the phrase Jewish whore, puta judea. And Max Blumenthal quote tweets this. The Gen Z rebellion in Mexico City was not only orchestrated against the wildly popular Claudia Scheinbaum by geriatric upper-class Mexican oligarchs and millennial fresas, that's kind of their slang for trust fund kid. It featured anarcho-fascist displays. Isn't it funny that when you see this kind of thing in Ukraine or you see it in a color revolution, you don't see all these people screaming about the anti-Semitism, in the Ukrainian troops,
Right.
anti-Semitism in these protests? Isn't it funny you're not seeing all those Zionist accounts freaking out about this, freaking out against these protests? Seth Harp again. Hard to believe, but I've been telling people for years that there's a hardcore pro-German, pro-Nazi culture in Mexico City. Vice used to have a field day with these dumbasses. Now they're the vanguard of the pitifully diminutive anti-Morena movement. So that is really a great illustration of how people are manipulated into a completely warped understanding of the world. We're a couple of guys. We can't even answer emails. We can't even hire people to answer our emails. And it was not hard to get to the bottom of these protests. And there is not they quoted Scheinbaum. Most of the reports in the corporate media quoted Scheinbaum as claiming that this was astroturfed. But none of them actually went and proved it, which was very easy to do. It was not hard to do. All you needed was an internet connection and a keyboard to find that this was complete bullshit, that it was not Gen Z, that it was mostly geriatric, that it was manipulated from abroad, that these protests are largely being driven insofar as they're organically coming from within the country by billionaires that she's pissing off by forcing them to pay their back taxes and by kicking their corrupt political parties out of office. It's not hard to find this out, but you're not going to hear from Benny in the closet. You're not going to hear from Alex Jones. This is a good case in point as well. You want to find out who gets paid. They get paid. They get paid. Alex Jones, the original QAnon conspiracy theorist. There's no way that Alex Jones, with his decades of expertise in WEF shenanigans, does not understand that the WEF is on the other side, that it's not Scheinbaum. It's the protesters who represent those interests. There's no way he does not understand that. He's controlled. Benny Johnson is very obviously controlled. You see any account that is trying to play this up as an organic movement, right there, that's a shortcut. You want to find out who's getting paid, that will tell you right there. Right there. Those are people who are getting paid or who are trying to get noticed by the people who do the paying. You're not going to see anybody who's legitimate who's going to tell you that's real, including the corporate media, but we already knew that.
Yeah, I mean, well, or who have obviously, reason to conform to that. I mean, I think ultimately what it comes down to is once you buy in to a movement, once you buy into a brand, it is just very, very difficult to divorce yourself from that. And in the case of like someone like Alex Jones, I think that has everything to do with it, especially given, the fact that he's
But
now
it's off brand for him.
on
It's off
X.
brand.
Not off the new brand. It's off the old brand. It's off the 2004 Alex Jones. But in terms of this reincarnation of Alex Jones, this sort of Elon friendly Alex Jones, and that whole space, like this, the whole movement, the whole collage.
Yeah, but that's not really
creators.
where the base is for him. Look at Candace. How many fucking live viewers did she have last night?
No, but
Like if Alex Jones got so fucked with that lawsuit that he has to suck Elon's dick. Now, whether that's writing him a check or just, okay, you can be on X and I'm not going to bother you
well, that's
as
what I mean.
long as you don't go this way, that's getting paid.
It's an audience capture, yeah, whatever you want to call it, right? I think the whole collage of creators, the whole space is just so synthetic at this point, and this was easy to see coming. This was easy to see coming as soon as Elon joined MAGA, summer of 2024, is when this whole thing got this new sort of glossy kind of paint job. Like the MAGA is now basically like to rock and roll what they are to a populist movement, what like glam rock is to rock. It's not really rock, right? I mean, it's this like weird perversion of rock. It's this
got
glossy
a lot of sound bleed there
of rock. Yeah, and that's really what MAGA has turned into. They are the white snake of populist movements, right? It's not authentic. It's not real. None of it is real. None of it makes any sense in terms of like conforming to an actual anti-globalist movement. None of it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to defend the New York Dolls and I'm going to defend David Bowie. I think what you mean are hair metal bands.
Hair metal, not glam rock. What did I say?
You're really
I said
talking about
glam.
like Def Leppard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. What did I say? I said glam
You
rock.
said glam.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Glam. I mean, there are some legit, like, Queen is glam, and that's like legit, right? So yeah, okay, fine. Hair metal to rock. Exactly. Sometimes I use those sort of interchangeably, but yeah, I mean, and obviously the ethos behind all of this is anti-socialism. Right. They want to make an example, just like they're dying to make an example of Mamdani. Right. They're dying for socialism to fail in New York so that they can make an example of it. They want it to fail in Mexico for all the reasons that you said. And the other element of this is now you have Trump saber rattling, saying that he might be open to sending troops into Mexico if it's to stop drug cartels, right? So you have to make that look like it's a humanitarian oriented mission when obviously it's nothing but.
Right.
Yeah.
Please clap.